Hello and welcome to a BW Dialogue. This is a post-budget conversation. Today, the Finance Minister unveiled a new budget. It deals with the aspirations of a growing India. And at the outset, the Finance Minister talked about India being that spot of hope in a gloomy world economy. Today, we are talking to an expert who's seen budget over many years and understands the financial services domain and the economy and the business world well. Let me welcome Mr. S. Ravi, who's the managing partner and founder of RAVIRAJAN and Company. He's also the chairman of the TFCI, the former chairman of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Mr. Ravi, welcome to this conversation post the budget. First of all, how has been the budget? What's your top line comment?
So I would look at the budget in four things. First is the abolition of the angel tax. That's, to my view, for the startup. If you look at a headline, I would say that is one great thing. Second is focusing on employment. This is the first budget which is really focusing on employment, and especially the labor and employee-related PLI which is there. So that is the second thing that is good. The third thing is you look at the taxation aspect, the long-term and the short-term capital gains. That's another thing which is very prominent if you look at what has happened. The fourth thing which people are missing out is the reduction in the custom duty of the minerals like lithium, etc., which is very important. So I think looking at the mineral, the whole ecosystem of mineral, and which is like a very important raw material, that's a great thing. And the fifth, but not the least, is again focusing on clean energy and infrastructure capex being 3.9% of the GDP. These are my 5 takeaways as far as this budget is concerned. And these are good aspects, apart from other announcements, other allocations, and which can be long term, but the short term, these are the few. And STT. Again, introduction of STT, actually of a higher tax rate in the STT charges is going to be also sort of being done to overcome the speculation that has happened in the market. So on futures and derivatives. So telling people, please go back to equity. Don't be too much onto forwards, derivatives, etc. So that is a signal. I think they want to give a signal to the market, and that's what it is.
Thank you, Mr. S. Ravi. It seems like a very balanced budget. It's tried to create something for everyone. And, in the budget, the fiscal leeway is limited. So in that sense, it has stuck to a certain fiscal discipline, which augurs well. In my view, the rating should be upgraded. At the outset, the finance minister talked about job creation. And that was a big focus in the budget. What do you have to say about that?
So I'm very happy that the finance minister talked about job creation, because this is an area of concern for most of the people. This has been a real concern for, you saw the number of feedbacks that came in the pre-election period. And after the election also, there has been a lot of push for sort of creation of jobs. And I think the finance minister has attempted by making this announcement. But the most important thing in all this is going to be how it is going to be implemented, the fine print of it. So the internship aspect, the incentive-linked labor schemes, all this the fine print has to be seen. How is it going to be implemented? How quickly is it going to be implemented? That is going to be the key. This is the great area, and I'm very happy that they've started focusing on this. Because what happens is once it comes into the budget, it will be monitored very closely every year. And I see that as a great step.
Now, again, skilling was a big focus. Abolition of the angel tax, which has been a long-standing demand of the startup sector and investors, that has been done. What do you think will be the impact of all these?
So skilling, see, what is happening is if you look at skillings itself, or skilled labor, or skilled employees, there has been a deficiency here, especially skilling in terms of the smaller sector where there is small manufacturing, MSME, including going to the rural manufacturing, skilling has been a challenge. And I think getting skilled people even in handicrafts to everywhere has been a challenge. And I think the aim of the budget is to make people go towards rural side, and see that skilling and manufacturing improves in the smaller sector. And that's why the incentive is also come across. So skilling is going to be a very, very key aspect. And I think a lot of allocation has happened for skilling. But again, as I said, the detail lies in how they implement this skilling part. Of course, there is skill development corporation, etc. But I think it needs to deepen itself. It has to go more rural, and it cannot be just focused around the urban cities. That is what I personally feel.
The agriculture, again, the finance minister talked about it. The prime minister post the budget in his address talked about this, that we cannot grow as a nation if our agriculture economy doesn't do well. And there was a lot of focus and thirst on the agriculture sector, on the farmer. Give us a sense of what do you feel the impact of the measures in the budget will be?
So first of all, let us look at the agri sector itself and its employment. This has marginally fallen in the last 6 months or 1 year. And I think part of the job creation, agriculture plays a very, very important role. And that is why the focus has been on this in this budget to bring back not only through infrastructure, but also to bring in agriculture. The allocation of agriculture is significant if you look at the allocation itself. And I think the whole aim is not only through skilling, but agri skilling, and also to go to smaller centers, and also to increase smaller villages, and so that the agri products are there. And if you look at all the so-called the tax rationalization, you see a lot of things happening around the agri sector itself. For example, even the custom duty on agri equipment is going to be less. So I think that there's a lot of focus on that, and I think we are moving towards the importance of agri is felt. And I think it was there in the previous budget also. If you look at the agri percentile, was very high. But again, the challenge was it was the pre-election, and now there will be a lot of focus on actually bringing back the whole agri sector to better productivity. One thing that MSP, what we expected out of it, there's a brief mention on the MSP part, but I think we'll have to go through the fine print to see what it is actually. So the pricing of the product is also going to be very important. And of course, along with it, we'll have to see what is the tax rationalization that happens for indirect GST that affects agriculture. So that is one thing that we are waiting for the fine print, but the FM did mention about GST rationalization, and it should have some effect on further effect on agriculture.
Mr. Ravi, while the budget was so balanced and was appreciated, why did the stock market not respond to it favorably? Where did it fall down on the expectations of the stock market?
So, see, the stock market, if you look at India's stock market at this point of time, it is heavily leveraged. And it's very heavily leveraged. If you look at all the global stocks or exchanges or countries where equity to F&O ratio is very high here. And I think everybody was concerned about the F&O segment, and that is why the STT was brought in. Then also the capital gain and short-term capital gain was increased. So all this did bring the market down, because market has people who are day traders too, and who make money on a daily basis. So, and there are so the government in a way has pushed people towards long-term investment. But what happens is the market has a fabric where short-term traders are also there, long-term investors are also there. So in this fabric, the short-term people would not appreciate such a budget where there is a capital gain plus also the STT charges.
Of course, the PLI scheme, but both the finance minister and later on the prime minister talked, and the success of it, and hopefully over the years it will make the manufacturing sector robust. Now, clearly, getting private sector to give more capex, which will eventually result into more jobs, was in some way evident in the budget. What do you have to say about that?
So PLI, when it was introduced in 20, if I'm not wrong, it was very successful. It was only for 10 sectors or 10 products, basically. And now it has migrated to 30 odd plus the new, it is more than 30, if I'm not wrong. So, so the PLI scheme has been a very successful scheme. It has sort of brought back some bit of manufacturing. And I think it's very important to bring back manufacturing to the forefront. And the biggest challenge for manufacturing today in an automated environment is, and you see, it's a very, very important aspect that blue-collar employment also goes up along with the automation that is there. So automation should not reduce totally the blue-collar because it will create unemployment. So that is why what really is important, those manufacturing sectors where automation is not there, especially in the rural area, you push this labor incentive, so that an employment incentive, so that what happens is you attract laborers to the rural places, get them to be actually increase productivity, and thus increasing manufacturing, and the rural contribution has to be very high. And I think that is what is the small SME, MSME, these segments have to start contributing to the economy in a bigger way. And that is what is important. And I think that is why the PLI scheme, which is extended further, is going to be a great boost to the economy. And manufacturing is going to be the key because it will be the only driver which will take the employment up.
Okay, Mr. S. Ravi, at this point, let me bring in my senior editorial colleague, Mr. Arjun Yadav, into the conversation. Arjun, you and Mr. S. Ravi.
Ravi sir, let me shift my focus to one of the big four themes that were announced today. Of course, employment, skill generation, then of course the middle class. Now they've not been really happy today. I remember the last time I spoke to you on your expectation in July, you were seeing, probably income tax being exempted till about 10 lakh rupees. Today, there are some changes in the new tax, new regime. But at large, how do you see the changes today in the new regime? And do we see that the old tax regime will fade slowly?
So I am little. I was very optimistic at that time, Arjun, when I really met you and we had that conversation. So and I expected a little more from the finance minister on as far as the tax slabs are concerned. I expected the exemption to be a little higher, but what has happened is the messaging is very clear. The finance minister has already or stated very clearly that she likes to have the new tax regime in place. And what has happened is there is no change in the old tax regime. Whatever changes are happening is in the new tax regime. And so what has happened, the standard deduction, and also if you look at the slabs in between, means you look from 8 lakhs to 15 lakh slab also you look at. So there is a lot of tweak there. And you see the slabs have increased if you see. So if you look at the finance minister's objective, the maximum earning that happens in India in the middle class is happening in these slabs. And that is why the finance minister will cater to about 60 to 70% of taxpayers. And that is why the finance minister has focused there. I was little taken aback by the 15 lakhs and above income should have got a lesser interest rate of a tax rate of 30%, which was slightly higher. That's what I felt. Considering that there are no benefits of deduction, etc., and there are no, so there is education to be taken care of, there are medical expenses to be taken care of, and it's a very tough call for the middle class. So, but it's a good beginning, and this is just the first budget. So I think slowly and steadily, I think the tax rates will come down because fiscal prudence is also another important aspect. So the finance minister has balanced between fiscal prudence and giving relief. So that's what I personally feel.
And sir, given the changes that we've seen in the capital market taxation today, and given the language that came out in the economic survey yesterday against speculation trading, and how the government warned of financialization of the Indian markets, do you see these taxes being increased going forward?
So
Even further, yeah.
So the government has given a very great, clear signal. Yesterday's economic survey and today what we saw in the budget. They are not happy with this forwards, derivatives, etc. Because they don't want the market to and the common people to suffer on account of it. Because people are leveraging on their own money in a great way. And what happens is, so if there is any bit of a bottleneck anywhere in the stock market, the people, the middle class people, the people who are first time investors, who are small investors will suffer the most. So
Right.
here there has been an attempt to clean up the whole process and to safeguard the small investors by signaling that this transaction charges and capital gain. So what happens, a long-term investor won't go and pay a heavy small capital gain, short-term capital gain taxes. So they will
Right.
stay invested. So I think the purpose of the government is to see that trading derivatives and futures and options and all that has to be slowly brought down to normalcy. And I think that is what they are trying to bring it to normal. And that is very important from the stock market point, because India cannot afford to take a big blow in the stock market.
Absolutely. Sir, my last question to you. The capital expenditure has remained unchanged. It's at 11.11 lakh crores. And it is a high base. We didn't see any increment. What does it tell you on the future increments? Are we seeing a plateauing here of the capital expenditure? And has it been able to nudge the private capex to kick in and really, provide that job creation in the economy, which the economic survey mentioned yesterday?
So this flat curve is not a very good indication, let me tell you, frankly, because capex has to increase. And this is primarily happening because the private participation has not come to the great participate yet in the capex part of it. If you look at the private sector, how much has it contributed to the capex? Hardly anything. So what is happening? The government is relying only on its contribution. So public-private participation has not grown as much as we had desired. And that is why it is plateaued out. And it will be like this till the private sector comes in and jumps in and starts contributing to the capex. But also, this is the only way to create jobs also. And
Right.
that is another thing that has to be understood. And that is why the incentive schemes, the PLI scheme, all this is to make the private players come in and do more in their respective areas. And even the MSME and SME, where there's a huge allocation, the credit guarantee scheme, which has been extended, Mudra loan, which has been increased, all this has been done with a very clear objective to bring in the private players to do more and to provide loan to many people. Credit guarantee scheme will help the MSMEs. And I think that's the purpose. So the whole purpose is to move towards higher productivity, higher manufacturing, more jobs. And this will not happen overnight. It will happen through proper capex. And that's the way we have to move forward.
Right. Very quickly, sir, to wrap up our conversation, in one word or even in one line, if you would have to call this budget, what would you call it? And has it set some foundation for future budgets that you're sensing, if you have to sum up in one or two lines?
So it's a sensitive budget. That is how I will put it. Sensitive because it has relooked at, it has promised to relook at the pension scheme. Again, the new pension scheme. It has promised jobs. It is looking at the whole job structure. So if at all, I would say here the finance minister has taken feedbacks and is sensitive to the mood and the feedback of people. That is how I would put it.
Thank you so much, Ravi sir, for your time this late in the evening. It's always a pleasure talking to you and hearing your insights. Thank you so much.